Hello, welcome to Sterling Armory's YouTube channel, and this is the first of our Sword Talk series, where it's a bunch of us that talk about all sorts of things sword related, from pieces that we make to pieces that other people make, to the various types of swords, from sharp cutting blades to stage combat blades to sparring blades. Then talking about movies, video games, basically everything sword related. So I hope you enjoy this series. We're probably going to try to put it out maybe twice a month or once a month, but it'll be just me and the guys talking. So with that, let's bring on the introductions of our team. So we have Josh and Thomas, and let's do some introductions. Josh, you want to talk a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, why not? Hi, I'm Josh. A lot of you know me as Warbear. I began really simplistic sword stuff with Chris forever ago, going on, 10 years now or so, something like that. Pretty close to it. I used to just put suits and ties on Hanwei blades and just kind of make my own knives, but I'm very quickly pushing to make my own stuff. And then I, of course, do leather armor and stuff like that, and concept art. Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool fantasy blade designs. If you want to see him, check out his Instagram, which we'll link below at the end, and we'll talk about a little later. And then Thomas, you want to give a little intro?
Hey, yep. So I'm Thomas. Same as Warbear. I've been working with Chris not nearly as long, maybe 5 or 6 years now. Still learning a lot of the ropes. Working the festival scenes, doing Renaissance shows, got me into it, and bumped into Chris there, learning since then. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to keep learning to do more.
Awesome. And I'm Chris. I've been making blades for, I think, 20-ish. No, probably more than that now. I was 18. How old am I? I don't know. 20-something years. Started off really bad. Had to learn a lot. I think I make better blades now. But I'm also a martial artist and in the engineering community, so try to bring all that into sword making stuff that we do. So if you're on this channel, hopefully you've seen our stuff on Facebook, and if not, go check us out there. And the way the Sword Talk's going to work is we're going to have a main topic for each of our Sword Talk episodes. So for episode 1, we'll have a topic that we're going to dive into in a second, and then each episode that will come out in the future will be a special topic, and that's probably the title of this video if you haven't got that. Before we go to the main topic, though, we're going to start with what we're drinking. So it's round robin. Josh, what are you drinking?
I, this evening, am drinking a fine mead from the Hive Winery up in North Utah.
That's a good one. Thomas,
that's really tasty. So I am actually drinking a coffee liqueur called Mr. Black's.
Mr. Black.
It's super delicious at all times of the day, hot or cold. I am drinking it currently cold with some cream because I haven't had coffee today.
Nice. Mr. Black is good. If you guys haven't had that, it's a great. I actually like it in the morning. Then I'm drinking my go-to, which is I never know how to pronounce this, but this is the mead made in Denmark.
Oh yeah,
Dangst.
Yeah,
my buddy's called it Dank Mead. Pretty sure it's not Dank Mead, but Dangst, I think is what it's called. But it's a very good mead that you can get at most liquor stores. So cheers, everybody. We'll be drinking a lot, and if you look at our about on Facebook, it's we're just a bunch of nerds who love making blades and drinking drinks. So yeah, let's get into our main topic. Probably the first several episodes, the main topics will be things that kind of help the audience, you guys, get to know us a little bit better. And the first one we're starting with today is our top 5 either favorite swords or swords that got us into the sword making industry and just get into the sword hobby in general.
How difficult is that list to make? You know what I mean? Like, there's been so many years and so many swords over them.
This list has gone through some revisions.
Yeah, mine went through revisions too. I'm actually excited to hear everyone's list because, this is me learning about everybody else here as well. But yeah, I had to do a lot of revisions on my list because, so I was trying to think of things that got me into sword making. So there's a lot of swords later on in life but I was already into the sword world. So, yeah, it was difficult. We also have 3 other guys on our team: Colton, Chet, and Brandon. They weren't able to join today, but hopefully we'll get to see theirs as well. That might be a future episode. We'll see. So, you guys ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Let's. So the way we're gonna do this is we're gonna round robin it. Everyone's gonna
Beastmaster.
Yeah. So my number 5. I actually had to. This is my number 5 position. Is what flipped back and forth and changed the most. So I picked Beastmaster sword because that's. So I grew up also in the Chinese martial arts, and we used curved blade. Actually, we used styles. I have one here. So in our kung fu style, we used, these curved blades, and from my experience, the Beastmaster blade was the first sword on screen as a hero prop that was a curved blade that I personally saw. So when I saw that blade, I got really excited. The blade itself, I don't recall who actually made that blade. I'm not sure. There's a few. I think only one person makes decent ones today, but yeah, it was beautiful. I went back and watched it recently. And my God, I didn't realize how bad that movie is.
It's so bad.
I was like, wow,
so
I thought
bad.
this was really good. Like, I thought it was like Conan level, but no, not at all.
No.
Though I love the movie. Like, the actual movie is crazy good. But again, like you said, as you mature and go back, you're like, nostalgic value. And then you watch it, you're like, oh God, that's a guy in a shitty bear costume. Whoa,
and the town
bad.
in the background, that's clearly a miniature that I never knew when I was a kid.
Or
the sword itself.
The ferret died. They definitely threw an actual ferret into the fire because they budget. Like, damn it.
But the sword itself, I'm not sure where the design came from. Do you guys know? I have no idea.
It's definitely like Shamshir. Like it speaks to me. Like back then, what was it, 80s? I think Beastmaster came out with 82, 81, 79, something like that. I think like the main villains, even in films, had like the Shamshir executioner sword. So it had that big dip in the front and then come out. And that was like the weapon. So it looks like it was kind of posted off of that.
Yeah, which was at the time, I think, a bit different, right? Because all the hero blades at the time were usually straight double-edged blades, unless it was a katana. Right. So this was very different. And it again, for me, it reminded me when I was in my martial art classes using Chinese broadswords, I kind of thought I was a Beastmaster for a little bit. So I think I was, like 9, 10.
Until I was attacked by that raccoon. He was so savage and did not aid me.
Yeah, the spray painted tiger attacked me. Yeah. But yeah, it was. I don't know. It was pretty neat design. I still think it is. I will eventually make one of those. That's actually one of the film blades that it's on my list to make, and I haven't made yet. So
I definitely like the design too, because it is like it's a movie design, but it's very simplistic. Unlike when you think of things like Conan's blade and how detailed it was. And a lot of movies in the 80s were really detailed and like over the top, and this is just very clean and simple.
Right. Yeah,
and you're almost surprised that a design like that made it on screen, like because especially back in the late 70s, early 80s, when those like hardcore Beastmaster, what was the other ones, the crazy like schlocky barbarian flicks came out, Hawk the Slayer, Dungeon
2.
Master, Barbarians 1, Barbarians 2. Oh God. Stuff like that came out. All the swords looked terrible. They were so bad.
Yeah.
And do you guys remember it looks almost elegant in comparison.
Yeah, it did. Very much so. Yeah, it definitely stood out. The one thing that I'm thinking back now. Do you remember when he's swinging the sword around in the scabbard and it's still wrapped up? And I'm like, what are you doing? Just open the dang sword, like pull it out.
Do you remember his throwing thing that he throws?
Yeah, that wobble. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was so bad. I was like, well, that makes no sense, but I'm into it. I'm into it.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, who's next? This is
Warbear.
Josh, is that yours?
That's mine. So as long as I can remember, like Sword in the Stone is one of the first things I saw that had a sword in it. And like much like you see Arthur or Wart holding the sword and pulling it up from the anvil and the stone, and how it's illuminated. That's how it felt to me in my head. I was just like, oh my god, you know.
Yeah.
Swords, and granted, like, and the whole movie is gold. It's terrible, funny, awesome cartoon gold, and I love every minute of it.
Yeah.
And I still watch it like every 6 months or so just to watch it. And then after years and years and years of not watching it, and then coming back and starting that tradition, I took a look at it and I'm like, oh, the cross guard is too thin and the pommel's too small, and the shoulders are way too wide. And I was like, it's kind of a terrible sword if you want to look at it. But I was obsessed with swords from that point on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I remember watching this as a kid and it stuck out in my brain. But then in the 80s, we didn't have internet and stuff, so for a long time I actually forgot that I had seen this movie, and so it popped up somewhere. I think it was on a TNT or TBS thing, and I was like, oh my god, I remember this, and yeah, I loved it. It was great seeing that. Do you the cool thing about that one is clearly the artist must have been in a museum or something, because that's totally like the Henry VIII style sword.
Yeah, historical representation. Absolutely.
With some reason, a tiny ass pommel on it.
tiny ass pommel.
It probably it was like a worn away one.
Right. Yeah. And I've never even seen it in 3D, I don't think. It's always been in 2D. Yeah. So, and I see that there's like a cleft in there that pokes it out, that shows a riser. And I'm like, man, did it really have 3 dimensions? So I got to go rewatch it and start pausing it and see if it actually has.
He's got to turn it
like an actual, right? A scallop in the pommel.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, this was actually tied for my 5th place as well. Sword in the Stone was so instrumental as a child growing up. Same thing. It in the Don Bluth film categories like this, Black Cauldron, and so forth. And yeah, this sword was the same thing as Josh was saying. It's just, you see it on screen, you're like, holy shoot, that's a sword, right? Like, as a kid, you've never heard of that before, and this is the first time you've seen your sword. It's cool as heck. So.
And speaking of Don Bluth, like seeing like Secret of Nim, like Rats of Nim.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When in that same moment where he throws the knife and hits the rat in the back, and your brain is like, I have to throw knives forever now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So
100%.
that was one of my first times making things before I even knew I was making swords. I went and I ground metal into not a throwing knife, but
he was just killing
a piece of metal, and I would just running through it. Yeah, it didn't work so well. But,
run, Algernon, run!
Yeah. So is the sword going through the anvil and through the stone?
It's got to be, because the sword is way longer than that. It's got another a fifth of blade sticking into that stone.
Yeah. It's very. I think
how'd it get there? It's like someone stuck it through an anvil into a rock. That's the more interesting story. Not this kid becomes king of London because he pulled it out. Who the hell put a sword through an anvil into a rock perfectly? One go.
So I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I should know this because I'm pretty big on history, but I actually don't know the solid answer to this. The sword and the stone, and I think Thomas, you and I talked about this. The sword and the stone, and the sword from the Lady of the Lake are actually two different swords. Even though a lot of people, a lot of stories nowadays call them both Excalibur.
Yeah, so they are both Excalibur. It is just literally one letter difference. Because we looked it up after we talked about it.
Yeah. So is it supposed to be a different blade though?
It is. I forget how he loses the first one, because I think
he gets broken in battle, right?
Yeah, the first one I think was the stone, which is how he claims gets his birthright to be king of England, and then it's after it breaks that he gets the one from the Lady of the Lake. The Lady of the Lake one is the actual Excalibur that we know. This one was Excalibur, B-O-R.
So we should make that one then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it all rusted? Some watery tart threw a sword at me.
Exactly.
Oh God. That's why I was, that was the magic.
That's another Excalibur I never thought of. That could have been on this list. I mean,
tetanus.
What's funny about this one though, or I guess not really funny, but because it's based on a museum piece, you can get a version of this from all the main makers right now.
Like us.
So, yeah. In fact, I actually sold one of those at Combat Con and at Sarasota. So. Alrighty. John or Thomas, we're on to yours.
Yep. So in the
Yes!
Dawn era, similar to Sword in the Stone, this, like I said, my fifth place was tied between Sword in the Stone, Dirk the Daring from Dragon's Lair, and then the Black Cauldron's Magic Sword. All three are Don Bluth, and just growing up, Don Bluth was the movies I watched, which explains a lot because the man loved trauma. But Dirk's, it's just such a simple, basic sword, and it was goofy fun to watch him swinging around and fight with it. I spent hours playing Dragon's Lair as a kid at an old arcade, and I probably single-handedly spent a couple $100 in quarters just playing this game. Could not play it now, but back in the day, I did beat it more than once, and I could do it in like 1/4 run.
So
that's impressive.
Even as a kid,
with hard.
And I'm curious if I'm the only one who thought this, but even as a kid, when I looked at that, and I was like, man, the guard's upside down.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't just me. Okay.
No.
It still looks cool.
I was too enamored. Now, yes, I can look back and go, oh, wow, that's an ugly guard.
Yeah.
Still want to make it.
In my youth, I was more enamored by the animation style. The animation style destroyed my brain. It was so awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Still hand drawn, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
All 2D animation.
Yeah, all single cells.
Rotoscope and cell shade.
It was amazing.
So, I mean, if you want to make that one, we should make it. Just
remember to turn the guard upside down when you see it.
Right? That's gotta
Where's
hurt,
the pommel? Right? Is that the pommel, or is that his pinky, or is that the pommel at the very end of it?
Yeah.
Hold on. I think.
Yeah.
Too late, Thomas. Too
Don't
late.
I thought it was just like a.
That is a very fleshy
right.
pommel, if that's what it is.
It's just as a cylinder. It's almost like a scent stopper pommel, I think, if I remember right. It wasn't a wheel pommel, unless I'm remembering right.
I probably would put a wheel pommel on it myself just for balance sake, but the accurate one probably was just like that. There's not a good image of just the sword, by the way.
No, yeah. It was so I got lucky finding the Beastmaster one because a lot of people make it afterwards, so that picture was kind of easy to find. But there were some other ones that were on my list earlier before I took them off, and I could not find pictures of them. So, or good pictures.
It's a triangle. It's a triangle pommel.
Is it a triangle?
Yeah, I found. I just looked it up really quick and found a
Which
picture
way?
of it.
Is it pointing
upside down?
I can't see. Oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so okay,
That's one variation. Obviously, in that one, it's got a downturned cross. But if you look at this picture that I'm very stealthily going to slide up to the screen, it's got the same cross guard and the very
that's why I remember it. So it's kind of like
triangular tapered.
So, not really like upside down scent stopper.
So it's funny you said that. So I went and Googled it myself too, and I'm seeing like 4 different versions.
There you go. Here's directly from in-game. There you are.
Okay, so there it is. Yeah, it's a mushroom.
Yep. Very peninsular. Yeah.
Is that a penis?
That's good. Yeah, it's a bullet dagger. There you go.
We're all thinking it. I'm just saying it.
So are we back to me for number 4?
Yeah, I think we're on number 4 now.
Back to you.
So that was all of our number 5. So curious audience, if you guys have a list, we'd like to see it in the comments and what your number 5 is. So for number 4, I actually have one. Actually, the rest of my list I have. I don't know if that's a problem or if that's a good thing.
It's called an addiction. Get help.
Yeah, man.
Number
Seriously.
4. When Braveheart came out, man. Oh man.
Yeah.
So this is the Deltin version of the Braveheart blade, and he made, I guess, a lot of the parts for the Braveheart swords on set. But I don't think he actually made a whole sword for them. But yeah, when this came out, I was already a huge Highlander fan, so anything Scottish at the time, I thought was the best thing ever. And my parents, especially my mom, was like, "Hey, just so you know, you're part Scottish," and so that made me want it even more. And then watching Braveheart, and even though it's highly, Braveheart's not accurate at all, but the way that they did this blade, it's still classic, I think. and watching him just mow down people in the battle scenes was insane. And when that movie came out, I think it was a Noble Collection, I think, was the sword company, that the only one I knew of at the time. And they came out with a version of it, which is horrible. I think I still have it somewhere. And I was like, I mowed all the yards in the neighborhood multiple months to save up for that sword. And when I got it, I stuck it in the ground out back, and I stared at it, just staring at the sword. And I did the little like bing, so it was like waving in the breeze, like the end.
Just like the ending.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I just stared at it like, oh my god, it's such an awesome sword.
What a nerd!
Totally.
I would have done the same. I would have done the same thing.
Like,
yeah. Oh, and I actually, my first wooden sword that I ever made, I think I was 13, was one of these. So out of wood. And I still have that somewhere too. I don't know where it is. But yeah, number 4, the Wallace Claymore. If you look at the original one, that's what they think is the original one.
Mm-hmm.
It's so freaking big too. It's about the same length and the same blade, but in the one in the Wallace Monument, the guard is all wrong, right? It's a 14th century guard on a 10th century sword, so it's like that doesn't make sense. So I thought the design of that was a what if this sword was, had the proper guard on it back at that time, but they still got the pommel wrong. Like that type of pommel didn't exist at that time. So I still think the design is awesome.
Oh yeah,
so, with all that said too, like it's still one of the most recognizable swords.
It is.
You hold that up and everyone knows exactly where it's from.
Did we pull up the picture of that one?
The historical museum one.
Which one?
The Wallace one, number 4.
Oh, so we don't have a picture because I have it here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, so here's your picture.
Yeah, that's better.
As I hit something with it.
Yeah, I don't have any of those.
So you guys got to collect all the ones. So I have 2 collections. One of my collections. Oh, don't fall. Everything's going to fall in the background. One of my collections is I have
fall down on them.
Yeah, no.
Shield.
It'll happen probably. One of my collections is a sword. All the different film swords that inspired me growing up, and then also my other collection is swords from all my favorite makers. So I have. If you can scan the background, you'll see swords from really good makers and from films. So that's my collection. So,
nice.
Yeah, absolutely love that blade. I have remade it. There's the the one hanging in the museum. So the blade matches what they use in the film. My guess is when they were going to the film, it's a total guess, but I would like to think that somebody who was working on props department said, hey, if that's his sword, doesn't make sense that it has that guard. That's out of time. So I'm hoping they probably talked to somebody, either a weapon historian, probably dealt in and Fubio himself, and said, hey, what would it look like in this time period? I don't know if that's true. That's my headcanon for it.
Working from me and my extensive category of working in film, I can tell you they looked at the original sword when they were going to make the movie and said, that sword sucks. We have to make a better sword. That doesn't look like a hero. I don't know if Mel Gibson said it or whoever said it, whoever the props guy was, but I guarantee they looked at the sword and said, that's not a hero's sword. We're not going to use that. We have to design our own.
Yeah, I'm curious if anyone watching knows the actual story of that. Somebody might. If you do, let us know.
I'll look and see who did props for and he make for the film.
Yeah, it was
reach out to him.
Thomas something. I've actually talked to him when I was doing lots of studies on actually making, because I wanted to remake that blade. So I talked to Fuvio, and Fuvio sent me to Thomas or Tim, I can't remember, who actually basically he took a lot of Delta parts and he would make guards and pommels and put the blades together for the film set. And apologies for forgetting that name. So sorry, whoever you are, forgot your name. But yeah, it was very helpful when I remade. So I remade 2 of those so far. And actually, even the Delta one, even though it's huge, it's actually not the right length. It's too short. So yeah, the original one was 61 inches, I think it was, or 60 inches. So huge.
Yeah. Well, now we have the ability to make it the right size. So
right. Yep.
That'll be fun. More big blades.
All right, so that was mine. Who's are we on to? Josh is number 4.
So, guys, let me tell you about Guts' Dragon Slayer is the most frightening thing I've ever seen. And paraphrasing from the anime or the manga, they even say it was less a sword and more just a hunk of iron that he swung around. But like being like young and impressionable and loving anime, the anime or manga, whatever, is great. It is one of the best I've ever seen, and I fully endorse it. It's like Lord of the Rings mixed with Hellraiser. It's disturbing, but his sword, you get those small details in stories where you hear things and it makes it that much better. Or Guts is a beast, and he swings. His Golden Age sword was also pretty awesome. Nowhere near the big as the Dragon Slayer, but still pretty rad. And it was just the same thing. It was just a giant sword that was stupid heavy, but he was super fast with it, which means like the muscles on his back were all hunched over deformed from him carrying so much weight. And they did like I guess a dimension scale of all the weight and height in comics, and it's reported to be like 410 pounds that he's swinging with one arm, which is impossible. But in your head is like, oh. And then I had the video game for Dreamcast, and then in Dreamcast, when you're in the video game, when you're swinging the sword and it hits, it actually bounces off of walls and hallways, but it goes through everything. There's even one point where he puts it in the ground and uses it like a shield and gets behind it because it's that big. But that sword blew my brain, and I was just, obsessed with how it looked. Which is weird because I've never liked the Cloudbuster. I always thought that sword looked kind of stupid. But then give me Guts Dragon Slayer, and I'm like, that's way cooler.
Put a double edge on it.
Yeah, put a double edge on it. Exactly. And the first thing I made in Chris's shop back in Tampa all those years ago was a miniature version of a Dragon Slayer that I used plastic to pinch on. And it was the way of Chris taught me how to do grind bevels. He's just said, here's a tiny piece of steel. And it was something like 3/8 thick by 12 inches by inch and a half. And I just sat there and playing with the angles, trying to get it perfect. And I knew it wasn't going to be a good dagger. And eventually I just goofed on it and was like, oh, I've got a mini Dragon Slayer. So this sword really it lights up my nostalgia and nerd factor quite a bit.
Oh, yeah,
I think when we were all teens, we all thought that could be possible.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then Irish Mike bakes it from
I know, right?
And Pretty Hate Machining, they've made a version of it too, and I'm it's like 350 pounds. It's heavy.
Right, exactly. It's funny to watch them go like, if they can even lift it.
And then in my head, I'm thinking about making it, and I'm like, grinding that thing's gonna suck.
Yeah.
No way, I'm not gonna do it. No. I'll admire it from afar.
You gotta get a place to grind it.
Yeah, I think I was. I think I was 15 or so. When this came out, I was already into sword world, but I was like, I think I can make something close. And I got this truck spring that was half-inch thick by I think it was 36 inches long total. So a lot shorter than what the real one is. I was like, this will work. And I made it. Like I ground it before I even had a good grinder too. It was a crappy grinder, and it was awful. But I was like, look how strong it is, and I put it between 2 blocks, and I would jump on it like, nothing can break this sword. It's the best ever, and you can't lift it. Back when I was dumb and I didn't know what real swords were, So, but it's definitely
very much the same.
Awesome. Yeah, and even further to that too, just the inspiration that Miyazaki, Dark Souls, is fully influenced by this sword and this art. I'll get more in detail because Josh already mentioned it. The Golden Age sword, that's actually one of my top 5 is the Golden Age. Not to say I don't love the Dragon Slayer, I just prefer the Golden Age because it is smaller,
more realistic.
It wasn't even that it's partially that, and it's just I don't know. There's something about the Golden Age that just kind of I don't know. I just prefer over the Dragon Slayer. But yeah, I think one of my favorite from the books is that the Dragon Slayer actually doesn't cut things; it just tears through it.
Right? Yeah.
Raw strength, and he just rips through everything that
Like,
he hits, and it's just
if
like,
you look
ugh.
at the bevel, the secondary, I say secondary, the only bevel in the sword.
Yeah, I know.
There's no way that's sharp. That's like a
No,
35-degree angle, maybe something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
not at all.
but getting hit by it, like if you block, you're dead. If it hits you on the flat edge, you're dead. If it hits you, it'll grant you like a clean death at least. You know what I mean?
maybe.
I'll just smash you to death.
Yeah.
I think
It's like a
there's
hammer
even
hit.
an episode where like it's in like the sword is damaged or he hasn't been taking care of it, so it's not that sharp. And the smith, he takes it back to the smith that made it, and the smith has to put chains around it and lift it up in a winch to heat it and then work on it while it's hovering. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
At least I thought about that. So I actually thought about what if I did the entire, so all the black center part, right, and even the majority of the blade out of aluminum, like like a 7075 aluminum, and then did a
Sure.
band of steel. I think somebody's done this already. I think, in fact, we should ask Matt and Carrie because I know they've made one of these before.
Yeah,
at
it was a
BKS.
bitch for
I just-
them to quench.
I don't. Was it all steel, or what did they do aluminum? I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember it being aluminum.
No,
Um,
I think
but
I remember
also
them trying.
Yeah, I calculated it out. Like if it was aluminum, maybe it'll be light
Yeah.
enough to hold. Nope,
Right.
it's still too heavy.
It's still like
still
250 pounds or something.
yeah,
like
it's
that,
something
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So-
Yeah, I remember they had to like build a special quench tank to quench it because it was so long. Yeah, because they made the Golden Age sword.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Awesome. Alrighty. Are we back to? Are we to number
Back
three?
to
now?
4. Oh,
not
this
number 4.
this guy.
Oh, that's. Oh, I was wondering how long it'd take for a Highlander one to get on. That's
I know,
my
right?
jam. So
Yeah,
Thomas,
no,
this is your number 4.
Yep. So yeah, growing up, my cousin had
I have one
like
of
Show off. But no, growing up, my cousin, he was big into Highlander, and he got me into it. He had one of these, a prop replica, just a wall hanger thing. But it was still just one of the coolest things. It was the first time I ever held a sword was this sword in replica form, and it was just like the coolest thing to do, right? Like the first time you hold a sword, and you're just like, wow. Right. And like, I didn't know what a sword like type was. I just thought it was a cool thing to have. Katana, European broadsword, longsword, whatever. It's cool. Who cares that this Scottish guy's got a katana, right? It's just cool as hell. Then I just absorbed the movies and the shows. And like, I watched the shows first. I didn't know there was movies. It was like well after that I found out there were movies.
Probably a good order to watch them in because the show is good by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I watched the shows, then I watched the movie, and then I watched the other movie.
Oh, well,
But,
there's a couple of other movies.
yeah, well,
My
the second one.
favorite Highlander movie is
The
definitely The
Source.
Source. Yeah, The Source is the best Highlander movie that's ever been made. I think I watched it twice in a row because I didn't believe it happened the first time.
I was
So I
pretty
actually-
sure I wasn't alive for the first one.
Yeah, I actually asked Adrian Paul because he was a producer on that, and I was like, what happened? And he has a great story about like how that turned out. And so
A great
Did
job.
the story happen like they brought him butterfly swords? Like, you're going to use these for the rest of the film. And he went, fuck off.
But yeah, if you ever get it, so I think some of you guys know. If you don't know, we do a lot of work, or not a lot of work. We're starting to do some work with Sword Experience, making some aluminum blades for them. And Adrian Paul runs the Sword Experience. So if you're at one of those events, it's a good story to hear what happened with that. It's just the story of Hollywood, right? You can have a really good idea and a good plan, and then Hollywood just just kills it. Budget kills it, time, schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys remember all the different iterations of this sword?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I remember season 2. What was it? Yeah, season 2. Halfway-ish through it, the sword changed, and I'm like, hey, wait, what's that? So, and everyone else I watched it with this was huge for me growing up, and you'll hear more because I have one of these on my list as well. Me and my good friend TJ, we grew up on this. We would go over to each other's house and get ready to watch it, or when it came out, we'd call each other on the landline phones and talk about the episode. when Tessa died, we were out in his driveway crying, like, "Oh no, Tessa died."
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and we were both in martial arts, and so me, like our friend group at the time, like TJ was always the Duncan McLeod of our group, and I was more like the Connorish of the group. And so we saved up a ton of money for, I think it was over a year, saving up, and we bought him that prop version of this that was out at the time. And it's funny enough, the prop version is the one they used in that season 2 when it's the hero prop. So he was actually using one that was similar to on screen. And yeah, so many memories with this particular sword.
Same, believe it or not. I don't know if you know this, Chris, but that's the first sword I ever owned.
Oh, is it really? I didn't know that.
Back in 98, 99, I believe, something like that. We went by, my parents used to love going to pawn shops and look around at just kind of what they had. And growing up in Georgia, that's kind of the thing to do because it's a small redneck town with not a lot of things. And we went into a pawn shop, and the pawn shop had not this version because the dragon head was different, but it had a red scabbard and very much the same design. I was like, can I see that sword? And I was, I don't know, 16, 17, something like that. And they hand me the sword, and I looked at it, and I was just enamored with it, and just like, oh my God. And I ran my thumb up it like a dumbass and cut my thumb open. And and I bled all over the sword on the blade. Yeah. And I bled all over the sword, and it was just like, I'm such a dumbass. And for some reason, that enamored me more. I was like, it's so sharp, it can cut me. And I told my parents I really wanted that sword. And it was something like $40 or $60 or $80. I don't remember. It was expensive at the time. And Christmas came around like 3 months later, and we were in a double wide trailer, and this like huge Christmas tree was, and you know what? It might have been earlier than that. It might have been like 96, 97.
The show was what, 89 to, or no, 91-ish, 92-ish to 95.
So it was probably 93, 94. But there was the Christmas tree set up in a small area, a corner of the trailer that we lived in. And then my brother Jeremy and my sister Jamie, they got their presents, and there was bicycles, and there was big presents all around. And I was just like looking around like, I didn't get anything, and I was so mad. I was so let down by my family not getting me a Christmas present, knowing full well Christmas is more about love and who the shit ever. And I was just so upset. And my mom went, "Well, you should look behind the tree." And I looked over behind the tree, and there in its red scabbarded glory and white grip with a red bow around it was my first sword. Wow. And I lost my shit. It was 440 stainless steel forged in the fires of Mount China. And forged
in the fires of Pakistan. Yep.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I still loved it. And I honestly had it up until about 7 or 8 years ago when I sold it to my neighbor because I was like, it's just I don't collect these kind of swords anymore. I'll sell it to you if you really want it.
Yeah, there's a lot of for this particular one. So the original sculptor of it, Sal, for a while had that Point Gallery website where you could actually, he would use, I believe he was using Hanwei blades, like real nice Hanwei katana blades. And then mounting so the season 1 version, let me clarify that. So the season 1 version, which that's what I have over here. Now the one that I have, I'm gonna knock everything over. So this is another one that we got for TJ later on in life. So I have one, and he has the matching second one. And this isn't from Sal, but Sal sold the company to Daryl. There's so many legal rights issues with the swords, all the Highlander swords, sadly. So it kind of is a buzzkill, but the ones that they make are fantastic. So I believe this is a Hanwei T10 blade. It's a great cutter. I've used it to cut a lot, and they do that carbon fiber wrap. But that's the original sculpt from Sal. I believe, I don't know, there might be one of the panels flipped or changed or something, but it's pretty close to what's on screen. And TJ has the other one. So yeah, we grew up on these things. So. And these are going for a pretty penny. they're pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
if you can find it, especially the original ones from Sal, they're really expensive.
Right.
Oh, it's gonna fall. Oh no, mistake.
Do it.
That's definitely gonna fall at some point. I need a better. I really need a better setup here. But yeah, what a iconic blade. Like, who doesn't know that blade? Right?
Exactly. Like, especially if you grew up in the '90s, no matter who you are, you know Highlander.
Yeah.
You guys haven't done the sword experience yet, have you?
Nope.
Highly recommend it. Adrian Paul is awesome. He's it's always, you're a little nervous meeting your heroes, right? Your childhood heroes. I'm not trying to act like or sound like a suck up, which I probably do right now. But he was totally awesome to me.
Fine.
Like, I was expecting him to be a jerk, and he absolutely was not. He's the coolest guy ever. He could probably join us here and drink and sit on a call, and he would. Seems like a normal guy. He doesn't realize he's famous.
Yeah, which is really good.
Right.
I mean, you introduced him to us at Combat Con last
year. Yeah, he was a nice guy.
He was really nice.
He came up to our booth, right? Yeah. Super awesome.
He came over and we shook hands, and he was just really cool about it all.
Yeah.
Next
Combat Con, you guys should do the sword experience. I'll see if I can get you guys in.
Yeah, I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
He's very funny too. He's good. Does that bring us to our third choices?
Yeah, it's on you.
I believe so.
I'm trying to remember what my third choice was. My third and my second one bounced back and forth a lot. It is easy. Yeah, that's funny. So my third choice, don't fall over, is the other version of Highlander. Yeah, Connor's blade. And again, just like Duncan's blade, Connor's blade was different every time it was on screen. But the H1 version, the one from the very first movie, which I don't know if this is the sculpt from the first movie or there's been a resculpt of it called the Mentor. I think this is the Mentor, but yeah, this oh man, so many memories of this blade. So like I said, my friend TJ was kind of the Duncan of our group, and I was the Connor of the group. And I was more of the fan of the movie than anything else. The very first movie only.
Same.
And
oh god,
actually,
memories.
The second one. The third movie, actually, I mean, Mario Van Peebles had a very funny voice throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And is that his voice? I really don't know if that is his voice. It could be his real voice, and if it is, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mario.
Yeah, but the third one wasn't terrible. It was still a good movie. The sword is entirely different in the third movie, though. It's like, to me, looking at it, it doesn't even look the same. Like, the handle is resculpted all smaller. It's angled. The Suba is entirely different. But that very first one, when growing up, I would actually pause the episode or the movie, the very first movie, all the time when it gets knocked out of his hand in that very first scene, and it slides under the car, and it's raining, and there's a close-up of the hilt. And it's because of that close-up that I knew, like, when the Highlander TV show came out, and the very first season, Duncan's character said, "Yes, I got this from my, my fellow clansman." I was like, "No, you didn't. That's not even the same sword." So, it's the only one that had that pin in the hilt. It's just, I don't know. I fell in love with it. I tried to sculpt it and draw it and sketch it all the time. I think when I first saw it, I was probably, 7 or 8 years old when I saw that movie. And that movie kind of directed, along with another one we'll talk about in a little bit, kind of directed my future and what my hobbies and interests were. So, what a classic. I never, and I don't think anybody knows today, what actually inspired the shape and sculpt of this dragon head, because it's not Japanese at all. It looks maybe like a Chinese lion.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks more like a Chinese dragon.
But I don't know who sculpted it. I don't know if anyone does know. If you guys know who sculpted this, let us know. But as far as I know, nobody knows. So the sculptor, I guess, never took credit for it. But do you guys remember the end of the movie? I don't know if you know this, but most Highlander fans know. When he drops the sword at the end, and the head flies off.
Yeah.
I didn't know that till much later on in life, and I was like, oh.
So
That's
there's like, as far as chronologically speaking with the movie and the storyline, he gets quickened. He's like, I can see everything, and he drops down. He picks up a sword. He's like, oh shit.
Well,
His sword's
because I don't
broken.
need that anymore anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I guess it's a good thing that was the last one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna retire now.
Yeah. And for some reason too, that particular shape of that handle, and I don't know if this is why I like the sword more than the Duncan one or not, but it's so comfortable in your hand because the way the dragon wraps, it kind of fits between your fingers.
Right.
And then where the chin of the dragon is, it's a stopping point for your left hand, and it's just so comfortable to use that blade. So like if I'm doing
katana with
tatami
a
cutting,
pommel.
yeah. So if I'm doing any tatami cutting with either of those two, I much prefer the Connor one. It's so much easier to use. So, but yeah, I think enough of Highlander for now. So,
We'll move on to Highlander.
yeah. So Josh, which is it Josh next or Thomas? I always forget.
Back to Josh.
Ooh, yeah.
So
I love the orgasm Josh has every time one of his blades is on the screen.
that's how I
That's a
am,
sweet
man.
looking blade. That actually looks a lot like one of your blades right now too.
Hey, come on.
It does.
You're gonna make me blush. It has been something, and not only is Shadow of Mordor one of my favorite video games of all time because it's Lord of the Rings meets Assassin's Creed meets Batman Arkham Asylum. It's like the design of it, like the rune system, the armor design, everything, like all the upgrades, they all look friggin' fantastic. Talion sword is Ufrael, as it's called, is honestly a two-parter because not only is his sword frigging awesome and it looks great, it's very Gondorian with the usage of the crossguard there and the clamshell of the Ricasso protector or rain guard, and then that like casket pommel. His son's blade in the video game, his son dies early on and his son's sword breaks and it's used as like a killing dagger throughout the rest of the game. And Chris, you know from knowing me from forever, even before the video game came out, broken swords have been kind of my thing. They're the thing I make and I want to do.
Amazing how popular they are.
Yeah.
It's too popular. Curse that Nick Novanti and him buying every single broken sword at every fair I've ever been to. And it just, it speaks. I'm a big fan of storytelling and personality, and this sword, his broken sword does that, as well as this sword. But this sword, like, made me fall in love with long swords. Because, Chris, you'll probably recall when we first got together and I brought over that big pack of cider and was like, teach me how to make a sword because I suck at doing it on my own. I was adverse to crossguards or cruciform, rather, swords in general. I was very into like shamshir, scimitar, Middle Eastern style blades. I love the curve, the barbaric curve swords. I was like, knight swords look dumb. I hate them. And then while playing Shadow of Mordor and using Talion's sword and looking at it and upgrading it, I fell in love with the idea of cruciform, and it was just like, I have to have a ranger sword. And then the first long sword I ever made with you was a nod to Talion and his ranger sword. And I remember posting on Facebook how excited I was because I was like, my very own ranger sword. And that's, I was going to say some more stuff, but I remembered what my top sword was. So I'm going to pause and we can talk about that later.
Same. Yeah. We can actually make this blade now. I don't think we have, though, right? I don't think you've made this one exactly.
No. Jeffrey Robinson, a crazy talented sword and bronze worker, has made one with the sheath that's like exposed because the scabbard for it goes down and has like the chape, but an exposed back so it can be worn down on the back and pulled out. He's second to none in my opinion. As far as the swords make goes.
Yeah, is that a flat on the blade or is that a fuller in the center?
It's a fuller.
Is it a fuller? Okay, it looks like a fuller. I love the bimetals, by the way. So the steel and bronze mix.
Yeah. It's like bronze, awesome. Steel wrapped in bronze.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, like
I kind of
they've contrasted that or mirrored it rather with the pommel, whereas like the clamshell and that like half cross is enveloped with the steel. And then on the opposite side, you've got like that casket pommel, which is bronze with the steel over the top of it. It just it's fantastic.
How long do you think that blade is?
43 to 60 or 43 to 60 inches probably.
Yeah, it's a long sword.
It's a long sword. It's not,
that's beyond
I'd say it's not Anduril. I think it's shorter than Anduril.
Oh, Anduril is only 36 inches.
The blade. Oh, you're talking about the blade, not the overall. I'm talking about
just
the
blade.
overall.
Sorry. Yeah.
The blade is probably 36 inches to something close to 40.
Okay.
Overall, I'm thinking it's probably 48 to 60.
If you have more detailed images and stuff, 3-dimensional stuff, we should try to.
I do. I've downloaded so many of them. They're just so intimidating, and all of them I've downloaded are all from like screenshots or Jeffrey Robinson's actual sword, and every single one of them I look at and I'm just like,
I know for a fact you can do that hilt work, so I'll do the blade.
Absolutely, yeah.
I appreciate the gusto. I'm glad one or two of you have faith in me.
That'd be fun to make though.
Yeah, it would.
I love the character feel of it too. Like, Talion's name and his character as a whole really is just exemplified in the blade, the handle work. That pommel from this angle, anyways. We'd have to see another angle, but that looks like a bird's head, and then the wings in the in the guard. It just, everything about it kind of just keeps into that same character that is the actual character.
Right.
And I love that kind of storytelling with matching the blade to the character.
Absolutely.
Which is another great one. Like, the Witcher blades really kind of feed into the character more and more. And
also the great thing of both of these is the Witcher blades and these types of blades as well. Or they can be made. They're within the realm of
absolutely. Yeah. So. They can be made, and they have been made before. They look phenomenal.
Amazing, yeah.
And that's what I was going to say about like Weta and Peter Lyon. Peter Lyon's designs and the way they build the swords is it looks like whereas Chris, again, back in the beginning, I was not a fan of historical swords at all. I only wanted fantasy crazy looking bullshits with like 25 fullers and
minimum
runes inscribed in the blade filled with enamel. And now that's what I love.
Real blood, it's not a sword.
Yeah. And it's got to amp your stats. If it doesn't, to hell with you. But that's the thing about like Weta, Peter Lyon, and as a sword maker, is he makes swords that, and again, this is what I was going to say about my first pick, which I've given away, is they make swords and design swords that look historically accurate in a fantasy universe.
Yeah, love it. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we actually, can we still play this game? Is it still available?
Yeah, you can.
In fact,
it's a PS4.
I'm going to start playing it probably tomorrow because I'm too much of a bitch to fight Elden Ring anymore.
We are on getting the Elden Ring, but I need to play it.
Yeah, I've heard it's really good.
Fun.
So we're at 53 minutes already, so we'll try to go a little quicker for the last.
Yeah, let's do this.
I wasn't sure how long these were going to last.
Yeah.
Remember when you wanted to do 5 people's swords?
Yeah, no, that would take. So maybe it's okay. I mean, maybe we can go beyond an hour.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, we can go a little over. Hour is the minimum marker. How about that?
I just want to make sure stream yards or whatever we're on doesn't cut us off.
Right.
So
let's keep going. So number two.
All right, we're still in threes. We're still in threes.
Yeah, we're still on top.
We just started 3, my friend.
Oh no.
No. I hate to be the spoiler.
All of us can talk. Yeah.
I hate to be the spoiler, but my number 3 is Endera.
Boo! Boo!
I'm surprised I don't have one of those.
I was about to say, Chris is about to just pull one out and be like, "Oh, you mean this?"
I have Flamedring and
I do
because a customer dropped them off. But
oh yeah,
do you have an Endera? Okay,
I sure do.
Absolutely,
you have the broken one, don't you?
Narsil.
Yeah.
Have the shards of Narsil. Yeah.
What a beautiful blade! I saw that
so
man.
Good.
And this sorry if I'm cutting you off, Thomas. This totally would have made my list, but this was later on in my life, so I was already well into the sword world. And when I saw these, I was like, man, this movie is on point. Yeah, like, I like the movie regardless of the story. I was invested in the blades like immediately.
Absolutely. Yeah, 110%.
Yeah.
And it could just be oh god, I forgot how to pronounce his actual name, but the actor playing Aragorn, just him wielding
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen. Mortensen was the one that I was struggling with.
Yeah.
Viggo Mortensen, just his portrayal while wielding this was the hero look, down to a T, and he just
absolutely,
like, I don't know if it was the blade that made him look the hero or him making the blade look heroic, but either way, just
both.
Yeah, a bit of both.
Yeah.
Even
he definitely acted differently when he got this compared to when he had Strider's
absolutely, yeah. This was the turning point in that character arc, and it was just exemplified by the sword. And I love, as we were saying before, I love storytelling when you can like incorporate stuff like that, and like that's very much this blade. It was in the storytelling, him receiving this, he stops being like, that's the last time we see Strider is him getting this blade. And then we see the return of the king, truly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Honest truth, I couldn't even tell you what his Ranger blade looked like. But without a doubt,
I'm commissioned for one right now.
All right, so I'll see it soon.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, though, everyone knows this is Aragorn's sword.
Yeah.
Inversely.
So super nerd deep dive here. One of my favorite things.
Yeah, he broke his toe when he kicked the helmet. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, he did.
That's the one everyone knows.
You want to talk about Aragorn? I'll tell you some things about Aragorn.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this blade was when Mr. Anderson, what's his name, hands him the sword for the first time. Up on the mountainside, and Aragorn pulls it out. Again, super deep nerd sword stuff. They actually show the blade, wobbling, like it's not still, it's wobbling because he pulled it out. And I was like, oh my gosh, somebody actually showed flexibility in swords. Like, yeah,
right,
I was so excited they showed that. And whereas most people are like, why are you excited about that? So that tells me, I mean, Peter Line worked on it. If you get a chance, I'm hoping we all can take a trip over the UK. Because the Royal Armories has all the original Lord of the Rings from Peter Lyon, or we go to New Zealand and go visit Peter himself. Peter, if you're watching, we want to come visit. Up. Yeah, but in the Royal Armories up in Leeds, they have all the originals, including the piece there, and his work there is just amazing. It's immaculate too.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, Anduril is what I was saying with the last cue that I did with Talion sword. Was he does a really good job of making fantasy swords look like historical representations in a made-up fantasy storyline.
Yeah,
this looks like something that if you found it in a grave, you'd be like, back centuries ago, thousands of years ago, that you'd be like, wow, that's really awesome. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
just the attention to detail for it.
That it was.
Right,
like okay,
that it's made up. Yeah, just all, and that's all the swords in Lord of the Rings, if I'm being honest. And that's what I love about their work is the swords themselves look like characters in the movie. And I don't know if you know this, but Aragorn bought his own horse at the end and his stuntman's horse, and he was afraid of golf carts. That was just something, the nerd trivia. I don't know. And when he threw the dagger, when the orc threw the dagger at him, he batted it out of the air.
That was
no joke, though. That shit gave me goosebumps when I saw it and then read it. And I read it every single time. And no matter who's around me, if they've heard it before, when that scene plays, I go, he blocked that dagger by really hitting it out of the air, right?
The very first time I saw that in the screen at the theater, I forgot who I was with at the time. But I looked over and I was like, that had to have been real. Like
the sound,
CGI.
The sound of them hitting it sounded very realistic. I was like, oh, that's not ping.
Yeah,
style. It's.
I don't think they meant to do that.
Right.
That was awesome.
Hey man, when you're in an orc outfit, you can't be held responsible for your actions.
That's right.
You get into
one of your the blade that you made when I was over there. Because Josh is out in Utah, by the way, and Thomas and I are here in Tampa, Florida.
For now.
But the blade that you made out there kind of has a similar look with that metallized lower half of the grip. Do you have it? Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to stop.
Yeah, so it's got a wheel pommel.
The cat is on the end of the sword. As I put it, I'm sorry. No.
There it is.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I love that sword, by the way, man.
Yeah.
Which I
It's
think, with the steward, was it? I could be wrong in this. The steward Denethor, the steward of Gondor, didn't he have a sword that was very similar to Aragorn's? That was similar to Anduril, but bronzed. Or am I thinking of
I don't know. Is that in the books? I don't
in the
remember that
books? Yeah, I remember seeing it in one of the art books for the movie. I could be wrong. I'm almost sure I'm wrong because who the shit would give Denethor a sword?
well, so
He was
Yeah,
a
I
little
mean,
better
like-
in the books. So,
yeah,
Oh, I'm sure.
I do think like
What an asshole.
from the reading, like obviously you read the Silmarillion and all that. That it's one of those family heirlooms things, similar to
Right.
Enduril's like origins, going back to his family lineage too. So it's entirely possible that Denethor did have a similar blade, being that they were both from Gondor and so forth.
Right.
yeah, that's true. Actually, all
I know the
Gondor
Gondorian
blades-
blade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the Gondorians all had long swords. The Rohirrims all had
Viking style.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Arming
almost. A lot of them
swords.
had arming swords too. A lot of.
I was
the-
gonna say I wouldn't say they
guys
were
with the
all
shields.
Vikings, but yeah.
So at one point with Sterling Armory, I was hoping to do like a generic version of like a, and you couldn't call it Gondor, right? Because we don't own the rights to that. But like a
Yeah.
Gondor style
Right.
sword and shield combo would be awesome. And same with the Rohan.
We
Sword
call
and
it the
shield.
Sword of the Tower.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
But yeah, they have some neat. So what's great about Lord of the Rings is if you pause it at any point and just look at the background weapons, they're all extremely detailed.
Absolutely,
it's pretty
yeah,
awesome to see. So,
Yeah, because the movie sword that Denethor had, because I went and looked it up because
did he have a sword? He's
He
sitting
did.
down the whole time.
Because well, so you remember he I think it's what he uses when Pippin offers himself as a vassal. Denethor pulls it out.
Oh,
to-
nice with it.
Yeah.
Did he? I don't remember that.
Well, there's
I
I've
know
really looked
the only
for it.
thing I remember about Denethor is he ate cherry tomatoes like a barbarian,
fucking
and he hated Faramir so much.
He hated
It
he hated
made me
life.
feel bad.
So-
And he ended his life with a Human Torch cosplay. Like,
Ah!
I don't know why he
That's-
jumped off. That's interesting. I think that's
Oh,
hilarious
cool.
that
There
he
it
jumped off.
Yeah, so that's what they had in the film.
Yeah. Ah,
We'll have to ask
So-
Peter about that one. 'Cause
Yeah.
Obviously, you made that one too. But
episode
it looks like
2 of Sword Talk. The gang goes to New Zealand.
Yeah, I hope.
Electric
Crossed, that'd
Boogaloo.
be awesome. I
We just
doubt
get
that'll
kicked
happen,
out
but that'd
right
be great.
away.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, like
on
realistically,
to-
we could just do an entire episode of just Lord of the Ring facts and weapons.
that might be a future sword talk. Absolutely. There's so
All right,
much
all right,
to do.
we're
And the
on the
new show's
list.
coming out, right?
More
Yeah.
list.
Ring of
Hour
Powers.
and 3 minutes.
I hope that show comes out and it's really good because we'll add
All
to
right,
it.
same.
Number 2?
Yeah, it's on. It's your number 3, or yeah, you're number 2.
Two,
One
right?
of the 2.
Number 2?
Yeah.
So my number 2, I had a little rough time with number 2. So
Oof.
After
did not mean
a
to
hearty
say that.
meal, sometimes. I see the drinks getting.
number 2 is tough. I had to squeeze it out there. But
this toilet humor. Oh, so good.
so
Don't worry,
it
we're
was tough
professionals.
to decide between which Conan piece to pick because
Yep.
I honestly wanted. My first list had all the Conan blades on it, and I was like, "What? My whole list is Conan blades. That can't work." So, I narrowed it down to this guy. And the Beastmaster sword I had as number 5 was almost Valerius because same thing, right? That scimitar style blade was what I was used to from martial arts and Chinese martial arts, and even though they're not at all identical, I thought it was fantastic.
It's
but-
very similar to Dar's sword from Beastmaster.
Yeah, it is. But this particular piece, I mean, his father's sword was. This is, I think, the winless version, which isn't terrible. I had to do some stuff to fix everything on it, but I mean, what a beautiful piece! And so, one of my earliest memories, and I used to have this on the old Sterling Armory webpage, which I don't recommend anyone go to, because it's horrible. But the quote was the father's quote, like, no one you can trust. But this, and he's like pointing at it like this, you can trust. And that, I think I
He gets
saw
beheaded.
Conan. Yeah, I saw Conan way too young. I think I was 5 or 6. And I remember, I remember just staring at it in awe. Like, I thought I was in that universe because I was so young. And then I remember my mom like covering my face during like some of the scenes with nudity and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you shouldn't be seeing this. But it's okay if you see, the heads coming off. So,
That's a
yeah,
part of
five
life. Boobs are not.
Yeah. I was 5 or 6 when this came out. And oh my God, did this direct the rest of my life, I think, in terms of sword intrigue. And it was tough between this and the Atlantean, too. But I actually I always had a lot more respect for this particular blade. And I'm not sure why that is. I love the flare at the base. I don't know. So what I've been wanting to do, and I don't know if you guys would, Josh and I think you've been talking to somebody about doing some bronze work. I would love to take all of the Conan blades were done by Jody Sampson, right? But he only did the blade part. The casting and sculpting of the guards and pommels were done by somebody else, and I can't remember the name, but I know somebody in our audience knows who did this. So, and if you guys know, tell us below. Josh, I don't know if you remember, but all the downside of the Conan blades back in the 80s, right before anyone knew about real sword stuff, is all the grips are completely round, and look how thick that guard is. That guard is over 2 inches thick. So my thought was it would be really cool to take all these designs and then thin the heck out of them out. Right? So instead of 2 inches thick, it gets down to 3/4 thick, but keep the detail in and remake it. This could actually be a very functional blade. That could be light. Same with the Atlantean. Same with Valeria's blade.
It is a functional blade if you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, and
So this one's 6 pounds. The Atlantean's 7.
6 pounds is an arming sword in the barbarian culture.
I mean, look at that design. That's awesome. I mean, it's so freaking awesome. So I would love to remake this in an actual, and just all you. I mean, so from a 2D point of view, you wouldn't even see the difference. The biggest difference would be on edge. Everything would be way thinner. I think that would be awesome to do, and no one's done that yet. I don't believe so. I probably shouldn't have said anything because now someone's going to do it before we get to it. So
we're gonna get that before Chris makes it.
Yeah, and then this is Josh. This is the first on screen that I'm aware of broken blade that's used, and I actually wanted to make that for quite a while too. Just this particular blade as a broken blade. Yeah, and what a piece. So I loved how and the whole beginning of that movie is them making this, right? Yeah, and that scene
the infamous snow quench.
Yeah, so when I'm working on blades in the shop, I play that song in the background often, or I just have that scene on in loop.
Can confirm. When I was with Chris forever ago, like almost a decade ago in the shop, we watched Conan on a weekly basis, or just had it playing in the background on repeat so we could hear the song. Yeah, and that's back when we had that tiny TV in that tiny shop. Oh man, where the dust made everything. Remember when we inhaled the black mold and developed different personalities and almost died? Yeah, good times. You can't teach that these days. No.
But yeah, that sword was. I have the Atlantean. I won't go blurry. There's the Atlantean right here. Can't really see it back there, but yeah, the Atlantean and I showed you Valeria's earlier, but the Albion pieces on that, by the way, man, I was surprised that Albion. I know they wanted to remake the originals as close as they could, but they did distal taper the blades, which was different, right? Because the original ones were not. At least I don't think they were. But then they kept the guards so heavy. So those blades are so heavy. So I think it'd be fantastic as an exercise to thin everything out and just see how much weight we can take off. So, but we got to know someone who can bronze cast. Anyone out there who wants to help us with bronze casting? Please let us know. Yeah.
This was an hour-long ploy just to recruit a bronze caster.
Right, yeah. So, Josh, number 2? Oh, yeah.
There's the orgasm.
I'm surprised this didn't make my list, but yeah.
There he is. Look at him.
Yeah.
It's He-Man. He-Man's power sword. It's the stupidest looking sword I've ever seen in my life. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. It is useless. Oh my god! So there's so many things wrong with this sword. You know, I like that it exists. It's all one piece of steel, and it's probably 3.5 inches wide at the
including
like
wrapped with steel handle. Yeah.
It has 7 ricassos, which is a bold design choice, and it has a pommel under the crossguard and another pommel underneath where the pommel should be, and the grip is all one piece of material. So. Thank God this power sword was made by gods in a storyline, because they didn't even know what the shit they were doing. And it's one of those things as a kid, right? As a kid, you fall in love with it, and you're like, He-Man rules. Which, as a kid born in the '80s, that's what I was all about. I'm still all about He-Man. I love He-Man. Yeah. And it was still I can never find anything to recreate the feeling that I felt as a kid whenever he would do exactly what's in the picture and bench press the sword and go, I have the power. And you're like, exploding out of your skin with how awesome that felt. And then you try and draw it. And even when you're from, your elementary school up until an adult, you still can't draw it right because it doesn't make fucking sense. And, that's great. Either way, the sword, He-Man, it is like, other kids were into Transformers, and that's cool. G.I. Joe, that's cool, and I love those. That's fine. But He-Man got to me first. I was super into like Barbarians and He-Man, which, as far as I can tell, was just at this point was just a very tan, blonde, blue-eyed guy with a German cross on his chest, bear hugging dudes and throwing them. And for some reason,
I never knew that.
That's what it looks like.
I don't think it's supposed to be, but iconology, symbolism, symbology, gets crazier nowadays with a magnifying glass over everything, and that is what it is. But yeah, you never think about that until you see it, and you're like, oh, maybe did it mean anything? No, of course they were just trying to sell toys. It didn't mean anything. No one was just like, he's a German, whatever. Either way, that's off topic. But the sword, it was something that caught in my brain and empowered me in all my sketches, all my drawings, all my design phases, all my costume choices were all propelled into a barbaric flavor just because of what He-Man started as a kid.
You still make some pretty cool barbarian belts and stuff too, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And a lot of them are based off of kind of a loose representation of He-Man and other barbaric type things. But He-Man was like the thing in my childhood that got me started and pushed me. Even today, like I say not today, like years ago when they came out with the DVD box sets of He-Man for the first time in decades, and I saw it. When this part hit, I still got goosebumps and teared up a little and cried. because I was like, it still hit my feelings right in the middle. And I haven't been hit with an emotional sledgehammer like that in quite some time.
Yeah. What do you think?
Other than that, worst design I've ever seen. I thought about doing a red herring where I was like, the sword in He-Man with Dolph Lundgren by Cannon Film was the biggest crock of shit I've ever seen in my life. But
I can't even remember what that looked like, but I thought it was cool when I watched it.
Oh, but it's very like gold tinfoil.
Right? Yeah, I remember it being bronze.
Yeah.
But Skeletor
it was very, awesome. Very bronze, very big. It looked like a fantasy Conan-esque, and you can't even ask me about the new He-Man cartoon unless I get like an hour to rant and another bottle of meat, because I've got a lot to say about it. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great.
I'm wondering. I'm looking at the image here, and where the diamonds are. It looks like it could be twin fullers, right? That could be those diamonds down in the Ricasso area.
You'd think, but they're definitely not.
Yeah,
it's just a big round oblong egg of steel.
So do you think no one's done that yet?
No one's definitely looked at the fullers. Yeah,
I think we could definitely.
I'm just wondering how much making that negative space fools with my head a little bit. I don't want to talk about it, Chris.
I don't have enough drinks yet. Give me a few more glasses.
Yeah.
I have designed a couple different He-Man swords, with like disconnected, like the 4 knots right there, the weird knots, the knots in the crossguard that goes up to a secondary crossguard kind of deal. I have drawn that out
Just
to be a
flatten
bit
them out.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flatten them out or make them not touch and just have them curve it outwards
Yeah,
and support the rest of the blade. So it is a cross guard that just folds up, very Witcher-esque. Would be the way to go for me.
Somebody makes a functional version of that right now. I can't remember who it is. I want to say it might be Texas Steel Props. Might be Daryl,
Texas
and
Steel.
Mark over there. Yeah, I'll ask them. It might be them, but yeah, they do the 4 balls. I don't know what else you call them. That they do them separate,
right, yeah.
I believe. And
It looks different.
Aluminum.
Power.
Every time it's drawn, it looks completely different.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely iconic. My brother and I would wake up early Saturday morning, back when Saturday morning cartoons were out. You know, watch this, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transform, watch them all. And
Same. I remember being, and maybe I'm rambling and talking a bit too much on this because I am the He-Man nerd, but I remember being in like elementary school in like second, third grade. And I had the He-Man like printout suit that was just like a trash bag cut out to look like He-Man.
I remember that.
And the little plastic face mask with the hard plastic slit that cut your tongue if you tried to speak your tongue. I remember sitting in it at the lunchroom table like this, being like, I don't have a sword. And then my mom, the greatest woman on earth, you know, Dorothy Von Warbear, she's a saint. She brought me a sword to school. And it was a blue-bladed rapier, and I was twice as mad that it was the stupidest sword, and it wasn't He-Man's sword, it was a rapier, and I was like, this is a He-Man sword, and I didn't finish my pizza, I didn't finish my pint of milk, I didn't finish my brownie, anything that was on an 88, 86 lunch kids tray, I didn't eat. Yeah. It was an emotional time for me, guys.
Yeah, that's funny. I'm curious how many people in the audience completely identify with what you just said.
Like, oh, he really is my spirit.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope I get. I loosely use the term fan mail. I hope I get fan mail saying, "Hey, bro, man, I still have that mask, and I cry every day because I couldn't wear the jumpsuit because my mom bought a small mask, and I busted out of it so it looked like a bib, and it was terrible. That kind of thing."
I guess we Thomas, you're number 2.
I can't top that. Can I just stop now?
Yeah, that was number 1, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
So my number 2 is, as I said before, it is Guts.
Guts Blade. Yeah. Weren't we?
Look how big that fucker
weren't we gonna
is.
make that at one point, or did we?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still gonna make that at one point. Yes.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah. So. The sword that, like, when Chris was like, yeah, I'll show you how to make swords, I was like, yes, you will. I will make a Golden Age sword. But similar to
the way it is, the way it is right there isn't, well, obviously we need to lengthen the handle, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
So I've seen that drawn much bigger, though, where it's like, oh, no way.
Yeah. And, like, they always, like, scaled it up with him, but, like, in this shot here, he's still, like, a teenager. But, like, you know, as he gets older, he still has this. And they just kept kind of making the sword bigger to keep the scale.
Right. Like, I remember this sword having a longer grip and a smaller crossguard. The Golden Age sword. But again, it changes in every single panel he's in, for the most part, or how old he is. But I remember the exact same sword, but I remember a shorter blade, a bigger grip, and a smaller, like, crossguard that comes in. A little flush. I don't remember the cross coming out 3 inches or 4 inches or 8 inches on each side.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but yeah, no, this was the sword that, like, when the concept of making my own swords was presented to me, I said, that's the one that's like my bucket list need to make above all others. Yeah,
same.
Yeah,
I gave it up. I couldn't do it.
I won't. I'll carry on for both of us, brother.
This one's not as bad as
I'll help you. Yeah. We should do it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll make it a team project again.
I want to say Metro did get one of these probably made by BKS at one point, right?
Well, I know
they did make a version. They did make a Golden Age sword. I don't know if they made it mass produce or whatever.
Do they do it at Man at Arms, or do they do it on?
Yeah,
Man at
Okay.
Arms.
Oh yeah, that's right. I do remember that now.
Yeah, they did that one, and they got a lot of crap because they were calling it the Dragon Slayer at first, and they got a lot of crap for it.
Oh really?
Obviously,
I didn't know that.
because they were like, "Yeah, we're making the Dragon Slayer," and they made this, and everyone was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, like, it's still cool." Like to me, I was like, "Yo, this is the sword I like." So I'm like,
"You bunch of nerds!" Oh my gosh, that's not the Dragon Slayer.
What do you mean it? Actually,
oh, you're right.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, like, you know, again, just like with everything else on my list, it just goes back to the storytelling. Like the thing that I love about the Zerg in the story is that Guts isn't a hero like any other. He is a monster in his own way,
right?
And like, you know,
and a victim. He's a victim
too. Yeah, like he's a product of his upbringing. He's a product of the world he lives in, and he's not your like knight in shining armor. Like he plays an entire arc where he's called the Black Swordsman because he's just like a douche. Like he just shows up places, kills a bunch of things and people if need be until he gets what he needs, then he's out. And just like, again, the sword is integral to his character. Like he can't imagine him with anything but this or the Dragon Slayer throughout his entire character. You know,
could you imagine how fast Guts would be if he used an arming sword and a shield?
Jesus.
Like you couldn't stop him.
Yeah, no.
It'd be like the Flash. He'd be like the Flash or any other anime speed of light swinger. That's crazy.
God, can you imagine him with a rapier?
Right, exactly.
Like the blade would snap because he's moving so fast.
Exactly. Yeah. Whack.
Yeah.
Done. Crazy.
What do you think the actual length of that would be from this image?
From this image,
6.5 feet.
Yeah,
6 feet.
At least. Yeah, what's our heat treat limit?
It would be taller than me.
72 sweet inches, Chris.
Yeah,
72. So that's too short still, right?
So hold on.
No, we can still make it. We just make a 72-inch version.
That's not the same, Josh.
So we'd have to extend the tang, what, 10 inches ish?
Ish, yeah.
Let's do it.
I'm down.
Yeah, we should.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, go Team Armory. We got this.
84 inches. The overall length of is 84 inches and 5 inches wide, with a 1/2
5 inches
inch
wide.
base.
Holy crap!
All right, remember that might change the width.
Yeah. No way.
The blade itself is 63 inches long.
Wow.
That's me reading, like, you know, someone that's made it on Etsy.
I think we
a while ago.
63, 72. So we'd have an 11-inch tang there. That's actually plenty. And then we'd extend it out to 84. That doesn't seem right compared to that image right there, though. But, you know, drawings.
Right,
drawings,
yeah. I mean,
right, exactly.
This is him at rest. Like in action, the blade just like morphs for every swing.
All right. Are we back to are we at our number ones?
Yep.
All right, number ones.
Woo,
so
we
these
did
are the number one most important blades that affected us and what got us into sword making in the sword world. So my number one is no surprise for people who know me, going back to Highlander, but not the Highlander sword you might think. So
Kurgan's sword. Sword.
Yeah. So for those really, really geeky Highlander fans, you'll know this particular blade as Richie's second sword that he gets later on in the series. I believe the immortal it came from was like Graham Ash or something, who was like an immortal who like chickened out on a fight and got killed. I don't remember the whole full story. But when I saw this sword, I was like, oh my god, it's the coolest thing ever. And I think what really sold me on this one is so I was into the behind the scenes as the episodes were coming out, and the internet was just starting at the time, right? So you could actually go online and find forums that, you know, this was a new thing back in the 90s. Like, oh my god, an internet forum. Like, this is so cool. Like, I can talk to people around the world. So the internet was new. And I found out that the fight choreographer, F. Brian McGash, he hated the Richie rapier because it broke every time they did any choreography. Like, he hated that blade. He's like, who picked this thing? It's awful. So he actually personally picked this sword for Richie to be a blade that would work and he could fight with and not have to break every time they do a fight scene. So he purposely wrote in, had the writers write in like Richie's rapier is going to break and he's going to get a new sword. And sadly, after he gets this sword, you don't really see much fighting from Richie anymore. But when I saw this sword, I was like, oh my god, that's a really, really cool design. And so I started researching it and found out it's based off an original piece. There's one in the Royal Armories that I got a chance to see and study in person. There's one in a museum in Germany, and I think one. Don't remember if it's over in Paris or there's a couple of them in museums all over. But obviously, so whoever designed this, so back then this is the winless version, but the original one in the show, they actually used the one that you could buy out of the. It wasn't winless at the time. It was not Atlantic Cutlery, but
Century Martial Arts.
No, it wasn't them. I can't remember the name of that catalog, but
Bud
there's
K?
one that Atlanta Cutlery also owned, but it was all swords.
Oh, right.
But they sold this one, and I got it. It was a tiny little catalog. I was so excited to get it like every month in the mail. And this was there, and I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, that's it. And the original one was a Delta blade with a windlass handle, and that's what you see in the show. But obviously, when they first made it, they must have saw two-dimensional images of the museum piece because none of them have flat guards like this. So it's like flat. They're all like an S curve guard. So this piece actually curves in and out, and the pommel is much smaller. It's not so big of a diameter. But the wire wrap, for those of you who know my personal sword, I mean that's where my design feature for my personal sword comes from, is this particular sword. And yeah, I absolutely love this thing. And I still do. I have every version of it that they've made. So I found this one sitting. I was over in St. Augustine, and there was an old knife shop there. It was like hobbies and knives, and this was kind of sitting in the background, like covered in dust. I was like, "Hey, are you selling that?" And they're like, "Yeah." And this was after it went out of production. So online, like on eBay, these are going for like $800. And I was like, "How much do you want for that?" And he's like, "I don't know. I'll take like $50." And I was like, "Okay." so I paid him $50. Yeah, and I almost sold it on eBay, but I was like, I can't. I make a lot of money, on it, but it means too much to me to sell it. So, and for those of you guys following our How It's Made series, we just started on YouTube, but it's been going on our Facebook page. We're actually making a more historical version of this, which is right here. So that's the piece, but it's essentially the same piece. What they call a Gothic bastard sword from the 16th century. There's a lot of the funny part is there's a lot of crazy history on this. So there's a lot of museum curators and people who study medieval blades who argue whether or not this is actually an original piece or a Victorian recreation. So there's still nobody knows the answer. So yeah, a lot of people think it was made in the 1800s, not an original. They think the blade is original, but it was rehilted. So but yeah, look at it. Such a pretty piece. And again, just like the Braveheart blade, there's a part in that Highlander episode where it's sticking, like him and Duncan and Graham Ash, I think that's his name. If I'm totally wrong on that, let me know in the comments. But they're talking, they're sitting in a garden, and this is stuck in the ground, and it's just kind of like waving in the air while they're talking, and the camera is clearly focused on the blade, not them talking. And I rewound and watched that part over and over and over again. So that's how much of a nerd I am for swords and Highlander. So,
nerd.
Yeah. So
says the
number
nerd.
one right here. And the other reason why it's a number one for this particular episode is this really got me, like, I wanted to remake this. When I saw the original blade was a little different. And it's a historical piece, so this got me to studying historical pieces a lot more and understanding what a real blade is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this blade really kicked off my sword making career. All right. Watch it fall and take out everything I just set up there. Oh.
Well, my number one is
What
Andorra.
a surprise! I'm so surprised.
This is not the image that I supplied, Thomas.
I mean,
Where's the red
You
one?
just used the same image that you used. Wow.
We need the new one.
You took everything I was going to talk about. You took the image that I was going to look forward to seeing. Just,
Wait, what do you mean? No,
Thanks-
actually,
thanks
I have
for-
a question for you,
using
Josh.
your image.
I do
thanks
have
for
a
watching,
question for you,
everyone. This has been episode 1.
Wait, hold on. I am using your image. Wait, no, I'm
So-
using Colton's image.
So I got a
Uh-huh.
big question for you, Josh.
Oh,
I did
Thomas.
notice that
This is personal now.
Yeah, the cross
Use my
section of
image.
that handle
Mhm.
is very much how you do all your handles. Is that where your handle inspiration comes from? Is this one?
Yes.
Okay.
I love the
Awesome.
diamond grind on the cross section of
That's so
all
comfortable
grips.
in that handle too. Yeah.
It really is, especially with all those risers there. He's got like 6 risers just on the grip. I've never
Yeah.
done 6 risers. I think 4 is like the most I've gotten.
You're
What
not-
I'll do on a grip is I'll grab the grip, while I'm making it, and I'll just do Sharpie markers in between my fingers, and then I'll do risers on those, and then I'll do my tight wraps and
Would
all
you-
that good stuff.
Would you call those risers or more just like a textured rib in the
I
handle?
call them speed bumps.
Ribbed
Yeah,
for
speed
his
bumps.
pleasure.
Definitely ribbed for my pleasure. I find it very pleasurable every time I wrap
Yeah.
my fingers around that.
That is
grip.
a super comfortable handle. So I was just curious
Yeah,
if that
it
was a
is, yeah.
coincidence or if that's really what you designed a lot of your handles on.
Right. I think what happened was I've done a diamond grind on every single grip. I say every single grip. I'll do a flat, like I'll do even if I do a diamond grind to start off with. Sometimes I'll do a flat first down the ridge, and then I'll oval it out, much like your
Yeah.
grips.
Yeah, that's my
But
personal
I
one is a diamond.
love the look of that high crest, that difference in color where it goes,
Yeah.
gray to black or light to dark.
Yeah.
That it's been a huge inspiration. There.
Oh, it's
It's
too big.
cut off. This
I'm doing my best, man. I'm doing my best.
But yeah, like my personal blade too has that diamond.
Yeah.
Kind of cross section to it. Yeah.
Right.
It's great.
and the elongated secondary choke was something I was
Yeah.
obsessed with for a long time. It's like I not only did I not like cruciform swords starting out with this and preferred fantasy ones, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, cruciform swords are kind of cool. Oh, okay, longer metal chokes and pommels, that's kind of cool too. And then the way he does almost like the sword is looks like it's hollow ground with a deep fuller, so it almost
It is,
looks like the sword is just basically made of fullers.
Yeah.
And those 2 high peaks that come out cresting over the fullers, they just look so good.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
So if we ever do get a chance to visit him, and
Yeah.
Peter, if you want to chime in here, because hopefully you'll see this on Facebook. His grinds look inhuman, like they look like they're done by a machine. But I know for a fact because
Right.
he's done it, and you see it on. He has an
Yeah.
episode with what's his name from MythBusters.
He just Adam Savage.
He's doing it by
sucks-
hand, and I'm like,
He
how
sucks
is
in
it
his
that
elbows
perfect?
and he just goes
Yeah.
back and forth like this.
Yeah.
That's all he does. And it
There
looks
you go.
amazing.
I do
and
want to
they're-
ask
they're
him though.
almost machine made looking.
They look
Just because
machine-
he's
yeah.
so precise on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm
Usually.
kind of curious if he had any design input on this, or
Sure.
if it was designed before he had to make it.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he did have a lot of design input, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
it's pretty awesome. So I'm also curious. So the downside to the metallized lower grips is that they really throw off a real blade's
weight.
dynamics, right? Yeah, the weight
Yeah,
dynamics,
yeah.
everything. But there's got to be so Peter's original piece that's at the Royal Armories is not that heavy. So I'm assuming that whole piece is pretty hollow, and
Yes.
that would make sense,
What if
right?
you
If the whole
did
piece is hollowed out. It would make that really light.
So I talked to Peter, Mr. Lion, if you're listening. I talked to Peter about, I was like, how on earth is that peened or constructed? And he said
Yeah.
it's not at all peened.
It's threaded, right?
He did a wooden grip, and he hollowed out the inside of the pommel and then used an epoxy resin or adhesive and then
Wow.
hammered it down on with a tight enough fit. So when it
Yeah.
dried, there's no vibration, there's no separation
Yeah.
whatsoever.
It's press fit, yeah.
It's totally like that. It's just
Yeah,
press
that's
fit
what I
on,
was gonna say.
which hurts my brain, just like how cool that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you did do that with your newest one. That thing's pressed on. You didn't have to
Yes.
peen that.
Yeah.
So that thing was
Nope.
solidly pressed in place.
Mhm.
So it may hurt your brain, but you're good enough to do it. So I wouldn't mind now that we have the smaller wheel grinders. I actually think I could do that guard now too. Whereas
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
we couldn't do that before because we only had the 10-inch and the 8-inch.
Right.
I think the part that would break us is going to be getting the little inlet. The way that's
the
brass
Yeah.
inlays. Yeah, it's tough.
the holes in the crossguard tips as well as the pommel, like mirroring that. That's a whole nother level for me. Like that's all file work. It looks like it doesn't look like there's a machine small enough that where you can get into that.
Dremel just
that's something I would ask him too. Is I kind of wonder if it was casted to the rough shape and then they finished it.
Sure, maybe.
Like I use my fingernails.
Yeah. Yep.
I just shoot.
Yeah. So I am currently commissioned to do a Strider blade, but I have been asked to make this one before, and I turned it down because I didn't think I could do it justice.
Yeah.
So, but
now you have to.
Yeah. Now I think I could, but the guard was really funny too, and I don't know if anyone's picked up on this, but the guard is a very much reminiscent of the Kurgan sword guard, but just shrunken down because all the dimensions and shapes. Yeah. If you look at all the dimensions and shapes around where the center of the guard especially, it's exactly like the Kurgan blade. And I was like, I wonder if they meant to do that. Probably not. But yeah, so aside from the flared ends, all right, the Kurgan one only flares up, whereas this one flares both up and down. The rest of the dimensions of that guard are very much the Kurgan blade, but just shrunken down. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a pretty blade.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So, Thomas?
Oh, Andero! Oh, the best sword known to man. It's the number one.
So my number one is...
sorry.
Well, now I've spoiled it.
Sorry. Yeah. When
Yeah.
did you see... so, in terms of when you got into making blades and seeing Andoril, when did that really push you in to start making blades? I'm assuming yes.
Yes and no. It did because something like that existed and it blew my mind, and I wanted to be able to create something like that. But mostly getting into swords was all Viking inspired. At the time, I was I do this thing where I collect mythoses and generational pantheons, all that good stuff. And at the time, I was super obsessed. You remember, I was super obsessed with Vikings, and I was really obsessed with a Viking blade. And I think the first sword I ever created, the one that I brought over with a bunch of cider, is I had a Marto Toledo barbarian sword blade that I broke the hilt off of. Yeah. And then I ordered from Dark Sword Armory a bronze Oslo Viking set that was supposed to be bronze, but it was not bronze. It was like mild steel or whatever, because it was never gold, and that was upset me. And that was the first thing, and I tried by myself so long to put my skills to the test and do that. It never worked out for me, because I just didn't have the knowledge. And that's when I came to you and was like, help me put this sword together. And you accepted my ciders with grace and allowed me into the secondary garage, and not the house just yet. I wasn't allowed into the house. But through the back fence. I was allowed through the back fence under the pear tree into the
different time.
I could use the kitchen. Every 3 days for washing my hands, and I had to leave. Yeah. Yeah. But Vikings is what got me into making swords, and then from there it just kind of took hold.
Yeah. Pretty. All right, sorry, Thomas. Didn't mean.
All right. Well, now that the secret's been
I've seen that before.
Such a beautiful blade. Yeah.
So
I know you're talking about this one a lot.
Yeah, I do. So obviously, the Wheel of Time is a huge inspiration to me, period, and to a lot of fantasy fans in general who are huge book nerds. This was the official. This blade picture was the official Heron marked blade for the longest time.
I almost bought that when it came out.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Is that the same catalog I was talking about earlier? What the heck was the name of that catalog? It wasn't Atlantic Cutlery, but it was something else.
Yeah, I could not tell you now. But I want to have one as well, especially now. But within the lore of the books, there's no one specific style. It's more just like status symbol. But it was the evolution of the Wheel of Time as a whole is an evolution of fantasy from Tolkien's style in the 80s, fantasy into how Wheel of Time did fantasy was kind of transitioning to what is now more the modern fantasy, and just the way the heron mark blades worked in that was so cool. Then, as a kid, I saw this one and I was like, oh my gosh, swords are so cool. This is so cool. And just anytime I think about swords, this always comes into my head. We've talked about it before. I'd love to make a replica of this myself too, while also owning this one. But
Museum replicas.
Museum
That's what it
replicas.
was called.
Yeah.
Museum replicas was the name of the catalog. I don't know why I couldn't think of that earlier.
Oh yes, yep.
Yeah, we all had it.
Yeah.
Museum Replicas Limited.
Yep.
And then, but yeah, no, the main character is, he follows the farm boy trope fantasy, but his father has this heron marked blade, and there's the immediate mystery behind that, and just again, like with all my picks, it goes back to the character and like how you can really build a character with the weapons they have and the stuff. I am cheating some, and while heron marked blades are my number one, what truly from a sword making inspiration point is actually not a sword at all, but there's a character in it, and I'm mad as hell because the first season did not do him justice. But the character Perrin in the show, in the books later on, he starts off as a blacksmith, and by the end of the books, now he kind of stops just being a blacksmith and he actually becomes a king. And similar to the Aragorn stopping being Strider and becoming the king, Perrin actually has that same moment with his own weapon, and it's a hammer, and it's basically just a neat in-universe version of Thor's hammer. But the scene of him making it is just so awe-inspiring. And that was the one that was like, I want to learn how to make weapons. Like it was just so amazing. And
pretty sure they'll get to that, right?
Oh yeah.
Hopefully they do.
I'm hoping that season 2 is a lot better. So part of the reason why he suffered was, unfortunately, the actor who played Matt dropped from the show due to personal reasons. Nobody really knows the specifics, but all the best to him. And unfortunately, so a lot of storylines had to be kind of shuffled around to kind of still fit and finish the first season. Overall, the show is great though, and I highly recommend watching it. There's a good reason.
I am sad that they did not use John Ledemo's, and hopefully I'm saying your last name right, John. But Odin blades, because he's done heron mark blades, like his custom designs, and there are, or Brendan O's from Fable Blades. Both of them have done designs for heron mark blades that are gorgeous, like the coolest things ever, like on par with Peter Lyon's Lord of the Rings blades.
Yeah,
and I'm sad they didn't
we
use
get
them.
more of that.
So,
yeah, I hope we get to that. The blades look really cool in the show, but they don't really touch on this aspect of them very much until like the very last episode. Right, and that's the one like telling part in the books too, is that they are very plain. The only thing that stands out is that they have this mark on them, but they're a symbol of the blade masters of the world. So,
but and there can be, they don't just have to be katana shaped either, right?
No, yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, so, like the main characters, in the show, Land uses a very similar blade, but throughout the books, you run into a bunch of other characters who have their own heron marks, and they do comment, like Arthur Hawking, who is King Arthur, basically in this universe. He has Excalibur, and it's considered a heron marked blade too. Yeah. So, anything could be heron marked. It's just a symbol within the world.
Yeah, I know the show got a lot of beef, a lot of crap, but that opening scene where the lady was pregnant and fighting through. I mean, that was probably the best opening scene of the year.
Yeah,
that was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome.
It's one of those scenes that when you see it, you're like, holy crap, that's really cool. But my favorite author, Brandon Sanderson, who actually finished this book series, because unfortunately Robert Jordan, rest in peace, passed away before he could finish it. But Brandon Sanderson finished the book, and so they had him on as a consultant. And when they told him about that scene, he was very like, that sounds very like Woman in the Fridge of you guys. And then he saw the scene and he was like, wow, that was handled really well. It still is what it is, but you did it well. Yeah. So,
I'm at a disadvantage because I've never read the books. I did again. I saw the TV show, and I was wasn't my favorite. It wasn't really my cup of tea, and I wish it was because I love medieval fantasy. I adore it. I wish it had been, I guess, done better. But what is done better? Because I have not read the book, so I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to. But some of the sword choices were cool. Some of the sword choices were not. Some of the daggers were really awesome, and I really liked those. Yeah, that's really all I can chime in on it. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I agree with you. Like, I didn't, as a fan of the books, there was a lot of things that I had to do when going into the show that I'd be like, all right, this is not the books, right? And that's true with any of them, but there were some choices, especially that was just like, where is this at all? That it should be part of the story by now. But my hope is that it did well enough that, and then the director is has a proven fan. Like he's like, look, I get it, right? But I have to tell a story in a TV medium, not a book medium. So things have to change.
Sure,
But he gets it, and the casting is fixing some characters in terms of like bringing them in that weren't in it. And I love the casting. All the characters are amazing. Like going back to the parent actor, like he may not have had a lot, like especially towards the end of the season, he may have had some moments, but like anytime you looked at that character, even if he's just in the background, he's acting his ass off in the background. Like, dude, this scene is like 20 miles from you, and you're still like the number one thing to watch. Like, good on you, dude.
Yeah. What did you? So when this particular piece first came out in Museum Replicas, what did you think of it? Because when I saw that, I was like, huh. It's not exactly what I was thinking when I read the description of it. But
having read the books, so that was the thing too. So in the books, he actually goes through 3 blades, and they're all like somewhat different. So this one, it's the closest to I had imagined. The first one was the one he got from his father, but even then, it's still missing an integral part of it. That is in the books, that plays a big part in the books. So it's very cool, and it's a very neat design, and I can see it as being in the world as a Heron mark, but I don't know if it would be one I'd consider the main characters.
Right. So when they released it back then, I think that's what they said, right? It's just a Heron mark blade, but they didn't say it was any particular one. Yeah. So, well, already I think we're at an hour and 47. So if you're still with us, thank you for staying with us the whole time. But yeah, those were our top 5 swords, and good thing we didn't have all 6 of us on, because it would have, we're already at almost 2 hours. We'd still be going. Yeah, we've got number 3 right now. So yeah, this is our first sword talk. Yeah, hope you guys liked it, and we'll be. We're not sure if we're going to do this twice a month or once a month, but again, all different topics for swords. So sound off below if you have any topics that, general. It could be anything, sword-related topics that you want us to talk about as a group. We do have a bit of a unique perspective because we are not only makers of swords, but we're also users, martial artists, stage combatants. We have almost every aspect of the sword industry in terms of experience in our group. So any questions for anything, send off below if you want us to do any topics. And then I guess before we sign off, let's go ahead and do an outro of everyone, where we can reach everybody. So I guess I'll start. So for me, if you look at our Sterling Armory Facebook page, I believe the link was at the beginning, and then the link will be down below. Most of my stuff is there. And then Instagram is, I just updated it. What was it? I think it's just Sterling Armory now, I think, on Instagram. My personal Instagram used to have all my sword stuff, but I'm moving it over to the Sterling Armory page. So if you want to reach out and if you want any custom pieces done, or, if you like any of our stuff, let us know. And then Josh, you want to give a shout out? You got a couple things going.
Instagram, as far as Instagram goes, it's Dark Archer Design, with, I guess, underscores between the words. Facebook is Joshua Von Warbear. My website is darkarcherdesign.com. And I think that's all my social media.
Yeah, that'll all be linked below as well. And then Thomas?
And then I'm not much for social media, so I don't have an Instagram or anything.
I'm trying to get him on.
But I do have a Facebook.
You can just email me and I'll ping Thomas.
Well, I was going to say, as far as email, you can reach me at thomas@sterlingarmory.com. And then I am on Facebook sometimes, especially around fair season. I'm on a little bit more often, but I can be reached at Thomas J. Boyes at Facebook. And that's really the only presence I have.
You're on our Sterling page, Facebook page too, a lot, right?
Yes. Well,
yeah.
A lot. A lot for being on social media on my standards.
Yeah, and thanks to Thomas because he's helping run all of this Sword Talk right now. So Josh did all the designs from the Sword Talk logos to the backgrounds, and then Thomas is actually running the Streamlabs right now. So thanks to them for that. And because of them, we'll be able to do this again. I'm thinking probably twice a month to start with, and then we'll see if that works.
Is the goal.
Yeah. And then Josh will be doing he'll be coming up with our main topic for the second episode, and Thomas will be doing the topic for the third episode. And hopefully we'll get our other three guys on, so Colton, Chet, and Brandon. Hopefully they'll join us. And, just scheduling, it's tough to get everyone on at one time. Yeah. So, alrighty. Any other closing thoughts?
Closing. Yep. Check out my OnlyFans. My Cash App and my Venmo and my PayPal all listed below. And if you're a sword maker, like us and everyone else, remember, as always, keep your peens clean. Oh, that sounds weird. Still accurate. Still do it though.
Yeah. That's very true. Keep your peens.
Keep your peens clean.
Yeah.
Keep them peens clean, guys. T-shirts. T-shirts coming.
Yeah.
Peens clean. Clean peens only.
Yeah, I was going to think if I have one right now.
A peen?
You got T-shirts. Peen.
Hope you have a peen.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
That's a clean peen, guys.
Oh,
clean.
Can't even. Yeah, clean peens.
The drink's getting to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks again for don't fall over. Thanks again if you've hung out with us this long, and we'll see you on. I doubt all of them will go 2 hours, but I guess it's great for a start.
I had fun.
Yeah. So also before we drop off, sorry, our How It's Made videos will be dropping every Tuesday at 5, and then these Sword Talks should be dropping whenever they drop on Thursdays. So every other Thursday, I guess, roughly. So you'll see it on our YouTube page, and we'll post it on our Facebook and everything. So
yeah,
alrighty.
Feel free to like, comment, subscribe.
Oh yeah,
don't be shy. Engage us.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'm on YouTube more often, so I'll actually respond to there.
Awesome. Yeah. We're excited to see comments and what our next topics will be. So awesome. Alrighty. Well, thanks again, and I think we're signing out.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.